Good afternoon, friends. It's Thursday, July 23rd. Thursdays in Black, a remembrance of atrocities. Thursdays in Black. It's also a time to remember some of the other things that have happened in our collective life. Earlier this year, February I think it was, I registered because I was excited to attend the upcoming ELCA Rostered Ministers Gathering that was going to be held in Phoenix, Arizona. It would have been this week. I was excited for a lot of different reasons. Some of the speakers and Bible study leaders were people I have known and have read and have admired. Also, we were about to celebrate, or to have a celebration at that event, of the 50th anniversary of the ordination of women in our predecessor bodies. 50 years of women being pastors. Indeed, something to celebrate. A golden anniversary. I remember back when I started seminary in 1976, the fall of that year, women had been ordained now for 6 years, and a number of women were part of my class, and I didn't think much about that. And when I went home for my first Christmas vacation, the first lengthy vacations of my first year, I was asked by some of my former high school buds, now back from their college and postgraduate schools, and some people at Gloria Dei Lutheran Church about how did it feel to have women in the seminary class. I think my answer was, duh, I don't know. I think it didn't strike me. And I also wondered why it was suddenly striking them that it would be a question to be asked. I guess they were now being enlightened about women in ministry, women in ordained ministry. We had always had females in our classes in high school. Even in a shop class, there were a couple of pioneers in the one shop class I took. Now, of course, gym class was a different story. But I didn't think much about it. I didn't really question or think much about their question. And then it was later in that year, my last semester, that I started a conversation with one of my classmates, a woman by the name of Joanne. Joanne later shared that she was a member of a Lutheran Church Missouri Synod congregation in New Jersey. And she left Lutheran Church Missouri Synod to join the then LCA because she felt called to be a pastor. And the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod was having none of that. They still don't ordain women. So then it suddenly began to percolate in that maybe there was a deeper question here. So back to some of that history. The first woman who was ordained in the then Lutheran Church in America was Pastor Elizabeth or Beth Pauls. Beth was a graduate of Gettysburg Seminary. That's my seminary, the best seminary at the time. And she was ordained in 1970 as campus pastor at University of Maryland, College Park. Now, I recall that she would from time to time be up at Gettysburg Sem. They probably invited her up because she was close by. She was becoming famous. She was also a good lecturer and presenter. I remember some of the stories that she shared about the hard work that went into becoming a pastor. Now imagine she had to enroll in seminary 4 years more earlier than the LCA was even thinking about ordaining women. In fact, she worked for 5 years as a lay minister at the University of Maryland, College Park before she was ordained. Now, my friend Gary, who's pastor at University Lutheran and Lutheran Campus Ministry at Arizona State in Tempe, Arizona, offered a fuller perspective. You see, I think Gary was playing it always in his mind about the possibility of being a campus pastor. And here was Pastor Beth, well, probably then we would have called her Pastor Pauls, coming up to Gettysburg to talk about things and shared that she was campus pastor at University of Maryland. Years later, when Gary became a campus pastor, he had the opportunity to be in a number of gatherings with Pastor Beth. And he offered the words that she seemed to be legendary to me. Years later, Beth remained in that same call, and he did become the colleague of hers. And sitting at some of those events, he also said he couldn't help but thinking that he was sitting with history. Now, Pastor Beth retired a couple of years ago from that same call in University of Maryland. And Gary had put her in touch with one of his students at Arizona State who was writing a paper on women in the church. The student came back to Gary and said, "I found her to be a most gracious interview." Maybe that says something about who Pastor Beth was. In those 50 years of women's ordination, for me, the novelty has probably faded because I just simply anticipate women being partners with me in ordained ministry. I have served beside some of the greatest, and I have always respected and enjoyed. I'm thankful for the time and the connections that I've had with Pastors Julie Webb, Barbara Fulton, Joanne Saratelli, Dawn Radinsky, to name just a few. And of course, our ELCA presiding bishop, Elizabeth Eaton, is a woman. I'm also aware, though, of the struggle that continues for these partners in the gospel. I was heartbroken to watch a video about 2 years ago that was put together by a group of women pastors to express to the rest of the church the struggle and frustration and the barriers that are there 48 years after the first ordination. I was disappointed, no, I was angry at some of the dumb questions that were being asked by both male pastors and male members of congregations in this video. Stupid questions like, what do we call you? How about pastor? Or, will you resign when you have children? Really? Did you ever ask your male pastors to resign after they had children? The barriers, the sexism, the frustration. Well, while what occurred on June 29th, 1970 in College Park, Maryland, indeed changed the world for us in the Lutheran Church. And it certainly has been 50 years of a golden anniversary to remember how much better we are and how much we have been blessed by the group of women who have served us as pastors. But like many reforms, our efforts are nowhere near completion. We have so much work to do in this progress and process of understanding and growing. As those comments are any indication, we've got a long way to go. A long way for the time that every congregation in our ELCA would be open to the opportunity of being served by a pastor who happens to be female. A long way to go before we're blessed to be open to possibilities and seeing the realm and width and depth and breadth of all of the possibilities of pastors in our community. I had looked forward to being in Phoenix because I think it would have been last night that we would have had some sort of celebration about the 50th anniversary of women in the Lutheran Church, 40 years of the ordination of African American women in the Lutheran Church, 10 years of anniversary of the ordination of LGBTQ people in the ELCA, 50 years of growing in our understanding and recognizing we still need to grow some more. I thought of it all this morning as I was reading a friend's email, his church's newsletter, and he listed some of the important moments. I thought about how I had been excited about the possibility of the celebration, and then I was disappointed in myself because I had forgotten that we were celebrating 50, 40, and 10 this year. Forgot to include it in my own calendar. Forgot to lift it up for us as the people of Shepherd of the Hills to recognize. Still have a long way to go to remember, to celebrate, and to accept. I look forward to seeing you again on Sunday. It's been a while since I've had that privilege and joy. I'm looking forward. I'm sitting here in the worship space, looking at faces and thinking, wow, when will we? Soon. However you define that four-letter word. So I'll see you Sunday in worship. And I'm sure that Joan will again be going, and pointing to her iPad screen as people scroll their names across up the side, or who are joining us for worship. And always, please, remember to wash your hands 20 seconds at a time, a couple of times a day. Wear your mask, please, when you go out. When you're inside and cannot be separate from everybody else. Be safe. Be careful. Be polite in wearing that mask. Practice the important physical distancing. Sometimes I forget to, but I want to be better at it in the weeks that are coming. And of course, as Sergeant Esther House dismisses us, be careful out there.